Alice stumbled into the garden and saw a scene straight out of a low-budget art project. 3 gardeners were furiously slapping red paint onto what were clearly, unequivocally, white roses. My dear listeners, if you've ever had a bad day at work, imagine this. Alice, bless her curious heart, edged closer. "Yo, 5. Watch the splatters, dude," shouted one gardener. 5, clearly a sulker, grumbled, "Not my fault." 7 totally elbowed me. 7, looking up with an expression that screamed, "I'm so over this," snapped back, always blaming others. 5. Classic. 5 retorted, "Oh, you wanna talk? I heard the Queen herself say you deserved the chop yesterday." The first gardener, a character named 2, piped up, "The chop? What for?" 7, clearly flustered, said, "None of your business." 2. But 5, living for the drama, spilled the tea. He gave the cooked tulip roots instead of onions. 7, mid-rant about injustice, saw Alice and slammed on the brakes. The other 2 followed suit, all 3 bowing so low they practically became speed bumps. Alice, feeling a bit like she'd interrupted a very bizarre reality show, politely asked, "Excuse me, but why are you, redecorating these roses?" 5 and 7 exchanged awkward glances, then stared at 2. 2, clearly the designated explainer, whispered, "Well, miss, see, these were supposed to be red roses, but we, accidentally planted white ones. And if the Queen finds out, it's off with our heads, you know? So, we're just improvising before she gets here." Just then, 5, whose eyes were darting around like a squirrel on espresso, yelled, "The Queen! The Queen!" And just like that, all 3 of them belly flopped onto the ground, playing dead. In stomped a whole parade, and Alice, ever the spectator, got ready for the show. First came 10 soldiers, looking like human playing cards, all oblong and flat, marching with clubs. Then 10 more card people, these ones bedecked in diamonds, strutting along. After them, 10 royal kids, surprisingly normal-looking, holding hands and bouncing like they'd just discovered sugar. They were all covered in little heart decorations. Next, a whole gaggle of kings and queens, and lo and behold, the White Rabbit was among them, muttering nervously to himself, doing that awkward fake smile thing he does, and oblivious to Alice. Finally, the Knave of Hearts, carrying the king's crown like it was the most precious thing ever, on a velvet cushion. And, for the grand finale, the King and Queen of Hearts themselves. Alice briefly considered face-planting like the gardeners. It seemed to be the hip new greeting around here. But then she thought, what's the point of a parade if everyone's staring at the ground? So, she stood her ground, a beacon of upright normalcy in a world of prone panic. The whole procession screeched to a halt right in front of her. The Queen, with a voice that could curdle milk, demanded, "Who is this?" She aimed the question at the Knave of Hearts, who responded with a silent, nervous bow and a sickly smile. "Idiot," the Queen spat, flicking her head impatiently. Then, she turned her laser-beam gaze on Alice. "What's your name, child?" Alice, ever the diplomat, replied, "My name is Alice, so please your majesty." But she added to herself, "Seriously? They're just a bunch of playing cards. I am so not intimidated." The Queen then pointed a regal, accusing finger at the prone gardeners. "And who are these?" Now, since they were flat on their faces, and their backs were just card patterns, it was genuinely hard to tell if they were gardeners, guards, or perhaps even triplets of her own kids having a tantrum. Alice, channeling her inner sass, retorted, "How should I know? Not my circus, not my monkeys." The Queen's face instantly went from vaguely annoyed to 50 shades of crimson. She glared at Alice like a hungry beast eyeing a particularly plump snack, then shrieked, "Off with her head!" Off, but Alice, proving she wasn't one to be easily impressed by a shouty monarch, said, very loudly and clearly, "Nonsense." And just like that, the Queen went silent. The King, clearly terrified but trying to look brave, gently tugged on the Queen's arm. "Darling, she's just a child," he murmured. The Queen, still fuming, whirled away from her husband and snapped at the knave, "Flip them over." The knave, probably used to these outbursts, carefully used his foot to prod the gardeners onto their backs. "Get up," the queen shrieked, her voice a high-pitched assault on the ears. The three gardeners scrambled to their feet, bowing so profusely it looked like they were doing some kind of competitive yoga. "Stop that," the queen yelled again. "You're making me dizzy." She then turned her attention to the rose bush. "What have you been doing here?" she demanded. 2. Ever the designated scapegoat, dropped to one knee, a picture of humble terror. "May it please your majesty, we were just trying to—" "I see," the queen interrupted, her eyes scanning the roses. "Off with their heads." The procession continued its lumbering way, leaving 3 soldiers behind. These unfortunates were tasked with the grim duty of executing the gardeners, who, with surprising agility, bolted straight to Alice for protection. "You shan't be beheaded," Alice declared, in a tone that brooked no argument. She then expertly scooped them up and plonked them into a giant flower pot nearby. The soldiers, looking utterly bewildered, wandered around for a minute, scratched their heads, and then cluelessly marched off to rejoin the parade. "Are their heads off?" the queen's voice boomed from the distance. "Their heads are gone, if it please your majesty," the soldiers yelled back, clearly just making something up. "That's right," the queen shrieked, apparently satisfied. "Can you play croquet?" The soldiers, now looking even more confused, stared at Alice. The question was clearly for her. "Yes," Alice shouted back. "Come on, then," roared the queen. Alice, wondering what fresh chaos awaited, joined the parade. A timid little voice piped up beside Alice. It's a very fine day." It was the White Rabbit, peeping anxiously at her. "Very," Alice agreed. "Where's the Duchess?" "Hush! Hush," the rabbit whispered, looking over his shoulder like he was sharing top-secret gossip. He practically elbowed her ear, whispering, "She's under sentence of execution." "What for?" Alice asked, genuinely curious. "Did you say what a pity?" the rabbit asked, mishearing. "No, I didn't," Alice corrected. "I said what for." She boxed the queen's ears, the rabbit began, but Alice let out a little snort of laughter. "Oh, hush," the rabbit whimpered, truly terrified. "The queen will hear you." She was late, you see, and the queen said. "Get to your places," the queen thundered, cutting off the rabbit. Instantly, everyone scattered, bumping into each other like a game of human pinball. Miraculously, they all found their spots, and the game began. Alice had never seen such a bonkers croquet ground. It was all lumps and bumps, not a flat surface in sight. The balls? Live hedgehogs. The mallets? Live flamingos. And the archers? Soldiers bent double, standing on their hands and feet, looking utterly miserable. This was less a game and more an organized riot. Alice's main struggle was controlling her flamingo. She managed to tuck its body under her arm, legs dangling awkwardly. But just as she'd finally get its long, elegant neck straightened out to whack a hedgehog, the bird would twist its head around, gaze at her with a look of utter bewilderment, and she'd burst out laughing. And then, when she'd finally wrestled the flamingo back into position, the hedgehog, the cheeky little blighter, would have unrolled itself and started waddling away. On top of that, the bumpy terrain was a nightmare, and the human archways, those poor doubled-up soldiers, kept getting up and wandering off to complain. Alice quickly concluded this was less a game and more a stressful, avian and mammalian-based obstacle course. The game was total anarchy. Everyone played at once, no turns, just a free-for-all, fighting over the hedgehogs. The queen, predictably, was having a royal meltdown, stomping around and screaming, "Off with his head," or "Off with her head," about every minute. Alice started feeling seriously uncomfortable. She hadn't personally triggered the queen's rage yet, but she knew it was only a matter of time. Honestly, she thought, they love beheading people here so much, it's a wonder anyone's left with their original anatomy. She was scouting for an escape route when she noticed something peculiar in the air. At first, it was just a floating enigma, but then it resolved itself into a giant, disembodied grin. "It's the Cheshire Cat." Alice realized, her spirits lifting. Finally, someone normal, or at least, someone I can talk to without risking my head. How are you holding up? The cat's voice purred, as soon as its mouth was fully formed. Alice waited for the eyes to appear before nodding. No point talking to just a mouth, she wisely mused to herself, or at least not until its ears are here. Soon enough, the whole head materialized. Alice, relieved to have a sympathetic ear, set down her difficult flamingo and launched into a detailed, exasperated account of the croquet game. The cat, apparently content with its current level of manifestation, didn't bother to appear any further. I really don't think they play fair at all, Alice confessed, her voice tinged with complaint. And they quarrel so much you can't hear yourself think. There aren't any rules, or if there are, nobody follows them. And it's so confusing when everything's alive. Like, the arch I need to go through next is currently walking away to the other side of the field. And I was about to croquet the queen's hedgehog, but it just ran off when it saw mine coming. The cat, in a low, conspiratorial whisper, asked, "How do you actually feel about the queen?" "Not at all," Alice began, "she's so extremely." Just then, she noticed the queen looming directly behind her, clearly eavesdropping. Quick as a flash, Alice pivoted. Likely to win, that it's barely worth finishing the game, she finished smoothly. The queen, mollified, gave a small, satisfied smile and continued her rampage. "Who in the world are you talking to?" demanded the king, sidling up to Alice and peering with immense curiosity at the floating cat head. "It's a friend of mine, a Cheshire Cat," Alice explained. "Allow me to introduce you." "I don't like the look of it one bit," the king declared, trying to sound authoritative. "However, it may kiss my hand if it pleases." "I'd rather not," the cat drawled, clearly unimpressed. "Don't be impertinent," the king huffed, taking a hesitant step behind Alice. "And don't look at me like that." "A cat may look at a king," Alice quoted, a little smugly. "I read that somewhere, but I forget where." "Well, it must be removed," the king announced, puffing out his chest. He then hollered to the queen, who was stomping by, "My dear, do something about this cat." The queen, bless her efficient, axe-happy heart, had a single, universal solution for every problem, big or small. "Off with his head," she shrieked, without even glancing back. "I'll fetch the executioner myself," chirped the king, his excitement palpable, and he scurried off. Alice, meanwhile, decided it might be a good idea to check on the croquet game, which she could hear dissolving into distant, passionate screams from the queen. She'd already overheard 3 players sentenced for missing their turns, and frankly, the whole thing was such a mess she never knew if it was actually her turn or not. So, she embarked on a quest for her hedgehog. The hedgehog, it turned out, was locked in an epic battle with another hedgehog. Alice, ever the strategist, saw an opportunity to croquet one with the other. The only snag? Her flamingo, her official croquet mallet, had flown off to the other side of the garden and was trying, rather pathetically, to fly up a tree. By the time Alice wrangled the flamingo back into submission, the hedgehog rumble had ended. Both warriors had vanished into the chaotic landscape. "Oh well," Alice shrugged, "doesn't really matter, all the archers have wandered off anyway." She tucked the flamingo securely under her arm, determined not to lose it again, and headed back for some more stimulating conversation with her floating feline friend. When she arrived back at the Cheshire Cat's location, she found quite a crowd had gathered. The executioner, the king, and the queen were locked in a rather heated debate, all talking at once, while everyone else just looked profoundly uncomfortable. The moment Alice appeared, all 3 immediately turned to her, desperate for her judgment. They all started rehashing their arguments simultaneously, and Alice, doing her best to decipher the verbal tsunami, quickly understood the gist. The executioner, clearly a stickler for procedure, argued you couldn't chop off a head without a body attached to it. He'd never done such a thing in his career, and wasn't about to start now. "Thank you very much." The king, in a surprisingly philosophical turn, countered that anything with a head could be beheaded, and that the executioner was talking nonsense. The queen, as always, had the most compelling and terrifying argument. If something wasn't done immediately, she'd behead everyone present. This last threat was probably why everyone else looked like they'd just seen a ghost. Alice, racking her brain, finally blurted out, "It belongs to the Duchess. You should ask her about it." "She's in prison," the Queen snapped at the executioner. "Go fetch her." And with that, the executioner shot off like an arrow. The cat's head began to mysteriously fade away the second he left. By the time the executioner returned with the terrified Duchess in tow, the cat was completely gone. The king and the executioner, now utterly bewildered, ran around frantically, searching for the vanished head, while the rest of the party, probably just happy not to be beheaded themselves, quietly returned to their bizarre game of croquet.